Welcome to Behind the Barricade. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know why we do this. Construction is hard. Retail construction is even harder. Tight timelines, unforgiving budget, design intent that looks great on paper, and then reality shows up on site. And too often, performance breakdowns, not because people don't care, but because right voices weren't in the room early enough. That is why I'm genuinely excited about today's conversation. My guest today is Pat Flood, founder and CEO of Quarter 20. And Pat is one of those people who sees the whole board, not just one square at a time. Pat and I have known each other for over a decade, and we worked together long enough that I've seen how he shows up when things go well, and more importantly, when things get complicated. Pat comes from the retail design and fixture world, but what makes him different is that he doesn't live in theory. He lives in execution. Over the last couple of years alone, his team has supported more than 1,000 retail executions across North America, Europe, Asia, from flagship stores to outlets and high-traffic streetfront locations. That's not conceptual experience. That's real-world, on-the-ground learning. What I appreciate most about Pat is that he understands where projects actually break down. Not in the headlines, not in the big ideas, but in the details, the assumptions no one validated, the field conditions no one walked before the fixtures show up. In this episode, Pat walks through a recent flagship project, one of those builds where everything looks fine on paper until you get inside the space. And that what stood out to me wasn't just how many potential problems they avoided, it was how they avoided them. They didn't wait for issues to surface. They didn't hide behind drawings. They didn't hope that the installation would figure it out. They got involved. They stayed involved deeply, and they communicated relentlessly. That theme comes up again and again in this conversation. Early involvement isn't a luxury, it's a performance requirement. Pat talks candidly about what happens when design intent comes from one continent, construction happens in another city, and fixtures are expected to land perfectly in spaces that were never measured properly in the field. If you've ever dealt with as-builts that didn't match reality, and let's be honest, we all have, we're going to recognize this immediately. We also get into what really separates projects that stay on the rails from the ones that quietly drift towards disaster. And it's not heroics. It's not fixing problems at the last minute. It's knowing where to raise the flag. It's having experienced people who can tell the difference between a problem you can solve internally and an issue that needs to be elevated immediately. And it's having the courage to bring bad news early before it becomes catastrophic news. There's a line Pat references in the episode that really stuck with me. There's no such thing as good news or bad news. There's just news. And the sooner you hear it, the more options you have. If you're an owner, an architect, a contractor, or someone responsible for delivering projects on time and on budget, this episode will hit close to home. We also talked about performance looking forward, not just what's broken, but what's changing. Pat shares how some teams are using technology like site cameras to reduce travel costs while increasing visibility and accountability. We look into the realities of manufacturing, scalability, and how tariffs and supply chain volatility are forcing smarter conversations earlier in the process. And maybe most importantly, we talk about mindset. The idea about protecting the client's vision doesn't mean blindly following drawings. It means advocating for outcomes. It means making designs manufacturable, scalable, and real. If you've ever wondered why retail projects feel like they're getting more complex while timelines keep shrinking, this conversation explains exactly why and what to do about it. He doesn't pretend there's a silver bullet, but he does offer something far more valuable: clarity. Clarity about where performance is actually won or lost. Clarity about why early coordination matters more than ever. And clarity about what experienced teams do differently when the pressure's on. So whether you're managing one store or a national rollout, whether you sit on the owner's side of the table or the delivery side, I think you're going to get a lot out of this one. Let's get into the conversation with Pat Flood from Quarter 20 and talk about what real performance looks like when design meets reality.
Hi, I'm Jim Christian, founder and CEO of Cornerstone, and welcome to Behind the Barricade, a podcast dedicated to uncovering how to get performance breakthroughs in construction. And this conversation is really going to be focused on retail construction, and I'm just excited to have Pat Flood here from Quarter 20. Pat and I go back over a decade. We've done some exciting things over the years, and Pat's the founder and CEO of Quarter 20, a retail design agency that kind of helps a retailer from cradle to grave to figure out their design, figure out their customer experience. And we always love working with Pat and his team. So Pat, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for saying yes to coming in. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get into this industry, and how did you get into retail design and all that goes into that?
Well, it's a long story. Hope you have time.
I got time. I got all the time in the world.
I'm just kidding. Thanks, Jim. I'm really excited to be here and honored that you chose me as one of your guests. You know, I have a bachelor's of fine arts in industrial design. So when I got out of school, there's like 3 areas in the country that are hotbeds for retail store design, and Chicago is one of them. So I came out of university designing retail displays. So that's exactly how I got into it. And at some point I had children and had to, make some money. And I got into sales, and I kind of went to the more managerial side of things. And my designers now that work for me are very kind to me. They take my sketches and listen to me, and then they design much cooler things than I could envision. But that's kind of how I started in the industry. And I worked for a number of companies along the way, really industry leaders that really created really stunning retail displays and environments for their clients. And along the way, I had clients approach me, and so we broke off on our own at one point. And actually, we started out in the golf industry, making displays for golf companies. And that's kind of where we broke into this industry, to be honest.
How many years ago was that, Pat?
Boy, I don't want to age myself here, but it was back when we had bag phones. We carried bag phones with us. So I want to say it's over 30 years ago I've been working for myself. Yeah.
That's
It's
amazing.
pretty crazy. Right now, it seems to be going faster than I would like, but I can't believe we're at the year end already, to be honest.
I know. As we record this, we're just a couple of weeks away from Christmas. So it'll be here before we know it. Well, that's why I hung the picture of the green on the back wall here, Pat, because I knew you're a golf fan. We've never golfed, but one day we will. And
we talked about it. We have talked about it. Like many, we said we should, but we have not got that golf date.
2026. I see it in our future.
Exactly right.
So, Pat, you had such an extensive experience before Quarter 20 and certainly through Quarter 20. And I'm sure you've seen lots of different types of projects, but really wanted for you to unpack a recent breakthrough in performance, and how did it work? What did you see happening that was good? And, what was the end result for you?
I will jump into that. I just want to say at the onset is that, over the last 2 years, we've supported over 1,000 retail executions across North America, Europe, and Asia.
Wow.
And that's everything from flagships to wholesale rollouts to outlet stores, standalone retail stores. So we're really proud of the work we're doing these days.
As you should be.
Yeah, it's been very busy, and we're blessed to have great people on our team that can really execute a lot of these programs. But the one program that I thought would be a good one to touch on today was the Crocs store that we just opened just before, they wanted it November 1st. And, as things slip, and Jim and I were talking, we're a deadline driven company. So they can kind of dilly dally, but that open date for us doesn't change. And I think the reason how it worked so well for us is that we're in very deep with the Crocs team. We would have daily, weekly meetings with the Crocs marketing team, the construction retail team, the architects, and the builders on this project. And sometimes I thought it was a little too much, but in the end result is that we were able to get into these stores and foresee problems that we never saw coming. Wow. And in a perfect world, we would design all these, the retail layouts, engineer it, manufacture it, and bring it back and install it. In this instance, we did not do the design. Design intent was given to us. Our clients kind of use us a la carte, so they may not come to us for design, but they'll bring to me design intent. And in this was the instance here. So in this instance, the design firm was located in the UK. And so we would get these build plans, And then we were putting a store in Soho. So we went over to 34th Street and we had to compare plans, and they were nowhere near what we thought we were going to get. I mean, because if we had just lived with those plans, which early on in my career, I would have said, okay, fine, we'll lay out the store, we'll do the test fit with the fixtures, we'll install everything, manufacture it, ship it in, and then we'll work with the install teams, or my installers would install it. And it would have been an unmitigated disaster had that just happened. And I'm sure you and I could go on and on about how the as-built drawings you get are not what's in the field.
Right.
Almost never.
Right.
And because we had such a good relationship with the builder and Crocs, we were able to get in those stores, do our own field measurements, because in some of these areas, our fixtures had to fit into pretty tight enclosures. And if we hadn't gone and checked and had them raise some of these alcove ceilings, our fixtures would not have fit. So I honestly think our team, we had people for 3 weeks, not full crews, an engineer, our project managers, and the account manager on staff just to oversee, to watch, to make sure that everything kind of went in place as we wanted it. And it never does that. Even when we double checked and triple checked, things popped up in the field where we have to decide, what are we going to do? And so we have to notify the client, hey, we've got an alteration here. There's a wall here where we didn't expect one. It steps out. How do you want to handle it? And so we would get on the phone or FaceTime with the client and say, here's what we're thinking. And that happened a couple times on 34th Street. Here's what we need to do. Are you okay with it? And so that would happen quite a bit. And when you're not that involved and you ship the fixtures in and you're hoping that the GC installs them the way you want them to, it doesn't always get the result that our clients are looking for. So we find the more we're involved, the deeper we're involved, we get a better execution of what the client's design intent is all the way through execution. And that actually helps, I think, in the long run, them to achieve what they want to do at retail.
What I'm hearing is the earlier the better, get you involved and spend some considerable time early before we start making fixtures and shipping fixtures and all that goes into that. Is that a good way to sum that up?
Yeah, that's probably, you probably saved 10 minutes of my
No, that's not what I'm saying at all, but yeah.
I'm kidding with you. But yeah, I totally agree. The more that we're involved, because, we can take some of these designs and we can value and engineer them if we have time. And we can engineer them for scale. If in fact we get these late, because, sometimes these flagships, these retail spots are expensive and they want those stores open as fast as they can open them. If we can value engineer these so we can scale them. And I guess you're right. The sooner we get involved, the more effective and the more cost effective the designs can be. And then we can achieve a much smoother and cleaner installation during the build out phase.
Yeah. So do you remember off the top of your head, like how long was the actual site construction of that store from when the contractor arrived to opening? How long
the
was
exact days? I know we were putting a store in Soho in July, so probably near the end of July, maybe. And we went over to look at it, and there's a long saga about that store. But I think they started demo in and around July. It's a 2-level store with an escalator. It had been it was pretty well worn. So they wanted to refresh that and get that ready for Black Friday.
Right. If they started construction in late July, early August, when did you first get a view into that store and know it was coming and start to see design intent and all of those kinds of things?
We knew in June that about what the store would look like, and like all kind of store fixture rollouts, it takes time and there's a million changes, and they would like to keep designing as long as they can. And we have to give timelines and say, hey, if we miss this window, you're not going to get it. And a lot of times, sometimes those are ignored. Sometimes we do our best to pad our timelines, but, more often than not, you have to be really transparent with our clients and say, honestly, this is it. If we don't make this, we're not going to be able to fabricate here. We're going to be late. If you're okay with that. And we understand changes. We totally get it that, in a perfect world, we like all the designs buttoned up here. In reality, sometimes changes can follow. Sometimes, and it happens. I haven't seen a project launch where we said we need it on this date. Final. I've not seen that happen yet. I hate to say, but it does. The timelines that we provide to our clients do operate. They are effective in getting our clients to make decisions. Maybe not always on time as timely as we would like, But we understand. I mean, the real world is, if we're not controlling the design, we're working with an outside design agency. Our clients are contracting, talking to them. And sometimes the problem is when we're not involved as deeply, some of these conversations about design changes we miss and we don't hear. We don't
Right.
hear until later. And then there's a disconnect. There's a misalignment there. And it just causes, it's money. It's basically time and money, which I feel none of us have time or money to waste these days.
Enough of either.
You got to hit these budgets that you set for your clients. And, I feel everybody's working really hard and is trying to hit the timelines, and the budgets are what the budgets are, and you have to work within them.
Yeah. So this is a great segue, because one of the things that I wanted to just chat with you about is, what do you feel separates a project that goes well from one that gets off the rails and doesn't go so well? What would your experience tell you to look out for when a project's starting to go off the rails? There's a challenge that's coming up. What's been your experience with that?
I think it's our level of involvement. And honestly, early is better. When something does go off the rails, it's incumbent upon our project managers and engineers to know when to raise the flag. The earlier, the better. As long as we can get to a client early and say, listen, this has gone sideways. We're going to need 2 more weeks to accommodate whatever this alteration might have been.
Right.
But honestly, it's communication with the client and having experienced people that know what a real issue is versus what a problem is, and raising the flag early and often when needed. Some problems you can work through. Other problems, you need to elevate it. You need to elevate that issue to the client as soon as you can to make sure that everyone's aware of what the implications could be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they will be. The sooner they have that information, the better off and more armed everyone is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to be happy with a delay, but if they're aware of it 3 weeks early, they can prepare whoever they need to talk to, as opposed to the day before.
Yeah.
No one likes late information, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. The surprise call. Oh, guess what?
Yeah.
We're not going to do it.
Yeah. And if you get that a month earlier, you're not going to feel any better, but at least you can prepare.
Right.
And the clients can understand. So I guess to answer your question, it's when they get the information and how soon they can get the information. I guess that's the difference between an experienced project manager and one that doesn't really know. I think a lot of people think they can solve problems, and it is knowing when to bring that information to the client.
We had a mutual client that has this line. I don't know if he ever told it to you, but he told it to me a few times. He said, there's no such thing as good news or bad news. It's just news. And the sooner I hear it, the better off I am.
Right. And I agree with that totally.
Yeah.
And whether or not they want to hear it is, you have to deliver that message.
So what's your experience been like? We both are working at trying to solve problems and servicing a client, and the secret sauce is to have repeat clients. So you want to keep everything going. So how do you balance when you get some information that you need to tell them and you don't have the solution yet? You're working on a solution. Do you wait till you have the solution to tell them, or do you tell them, this is the problem, here's the solution potentially we're working on? So how do you do that? Because I've seen both people take the attitude that I have a problem, but I'm not going to tell anybody yet because I don't have the solution yet, versus I've got a problem, I'm aware of a problem, and here's some things I'm working on, and sharing that.
That's the tough question right now. I think depending on the timing of everything, the more transparent you can be with your client, the better off you'll be. I understand, and I guess it's experience too. And I have a very experienced team. So I think we know when certain issues aren't going to go to bed very easily. Some issues, my project managers, I know that I have to give them the space to work out the problems, but it's also having the experience to know that, all right, this one I think is going to work. This is going to help, but I don't have a solution yet. I've got to warn them. And every client's a little different. Some are more reactionary other than others. Most of our clients are pretty savvy, and they would, much like you just said, they would rather hear that information up front rather than later. And even know that they're working on these issues. I feel good that they're going to find a solution, but at least I know. At least I know that, that this is a potential problem. They're telling me next week they'll know for sure. And so I think it's better to be more transparent than less transparent. A lot of it has to do with your relationship with the client as well. So you got to make sure that they're comfortable with you telling them this could potentially derail us. There's not really a set answer other than honesty is usually the best policy. You just have to protect your clients is how we look at it. to their superiors. Whoever they're giving that information to, we have to protect them and make
Yeah.
sure that they're okay.
So when you think about the future of construction performance, one of the reasons we launched this podcast is when I was researching performance in construction over the last few decades, it really hasn't changed much. We really haven't had any big breakthroughs in performance. So when you look out to the future a little bit, what do you see ways in which we might be able to improve performance over the next few years? What advice or thoughts have you got on that?
We have a client now that we're working with where instead of going to the retail stores, we're setting up cameras for them so they can be on site essentially without being on site. They set up a number of cameras throughout the whole install, and that seems to be working for them. So it's cutting down travel expenses for them
Okay.
so that
Yeah.
they don't have to be on site. We can be on site. We can set up these 24-hour cameras so they can see what's going on. They don't need 24-hour cameras, obviously, but that's one of the areas that I'm seeing where they're saving money on travel. And their guys can really see kind of on time, alive, where we're at in the install. I know a lot of that's done nowadays with people sending pictures back and forth and documenting and showing where things are. So it's kind of an automated time for that, I
Right.
would think. The performance end, I think, is how quickly things are done and how effectively things are being done
But yeah.
and communicating that back and forth.
Where should owners or architects or contractors, in your experience, be paying attention maybe in a new area or a different area than what you've seen in the past? Is there anything you're saying, hey, if owners would look at this more, or an architect would look at this more, or the contractor would look at this more, it could help improve performance? Is there any thoughts on that?
Well, I think what we see now is we do get a lot of design intent from architects. And while they're really good at building, they don't think in terms of scale or building store fixtures. I don't want to say economically. I mean, we would take a different tact on how we would build something. And a lot of architects would design a whole program, and then we ended up taking it and redesigning it. And a lot of times we do get design intent from architects. Then our job is to hold the aesthetic of what the architects give us, but make the look manufacturable. If we're involved early enough, we can start thinking about how we're going to take this design and make it manufacturable and scale it. Scale it to a rollout, to a wholesale, to, different retail environments.
What needs to be done?
Yeah.
So really, it comes back to get your team together early, get every component represented on your team, and get everybody at the table.
And even if we just see the early conceptual phases, my designers and engineers can start thinking about how we're going to make this flagship representation and take it down to different wholesale, to retail levels and then wholesale. And so we can hold that same DNA and take it all the way down the line.
Is there anything that, other than what we've talked about, that you think as an industry we should be addressing, like to improve performance? Is there anything else that kind of stands out to you that says, if we could nail this as an industry or as a project team, is there anything that really stands out to you that you think we should be attacking or looking at attacking?
We are often, in my world, and probably yours too, we're judged on how we deliver on time and on budget. So from an industry standpoint, I think our clients are primarily looking to deliver on budget and timing. And the marketing side of things, they want to make their unique mark with their brand and create those environments that are stunning and uniquely theirs. So, I mean, that's what we always strive to do from a performance side is to really create the brand and environment that addresses their terms of what their brand and what they're trying to achieve.
Uniqueness?
Their uniqueness in the terms of their brand. So that's how we have to judge. We have to create that uniqueness and then deliver it. From a performance wise, it's the actually hard part of taking the concept and bringing it to reality. And then we have to do that in a set time frame and a budget.
On a budget.
I wish we didn't have those two things, but
yeah, it's a reality.
The world runs on those.
One last thing it just hit me as you were chatting there. How are you handling all this tariff stuff that's going on in the marketplace right now? How's that complicated your life? How are you adapting to that?
Actually, it brought a hesitancy to the market. I want to say a lot of our brands and retailers that we deal with are they're pausing. They're not as aggressively going after growth as they were because they don't know the cost. And I think their products too are affected by this. So we have been looking at factories in Vietnam and Turkey. And when we present proposals and pricing to clients, they often want to see what's it going to be in South America. Can we produce it in South America? Can we produce it in Vietnam? It's almost a broad spectrum of pricing they want to see, as well as domestics. And in some instances, some of these retailers that we're working with now, we're doing a blended production. Part of it in China, part of it domestically. Again, it's all contingent on, do we have time? Do we have time and the budget to do it? But it's greatly affected everything we do. It's slowed things down quite a bit. And I don't know if you feel the same, but the industry's a little more tentative. The tariffs could change tomorrow, and that's kind of how it's been. It could change on a whim. And then the next day, you get a 50% tariff increase, which drives my clients nuts because they don't know how to budget for that. So it has really slowed things when we're bidding these rollouts. They want to see a broad cost so they can make the best decisions of where these products are going to be manufactured. So it has had a profound effect on our world. Profound effect.
What's your sense on the stability of the supply chain once you do make the decision? You're going to get something done in China, something done in South America, domestically. Do you find that the supply chain, once there's an order, is fairly stable?
Yes, Vietnam it reminds me of early production in China. I would need to have a body on the ground there for quite a while. Turkey would be another one. I've seen we've ordered prototypes out of Turkey just to gauge their manufacturer. And again, I think I'd have to have bodies on the ground there, really watching them to make sure that the quality's where it needs to be, So, in South America they do really good work, but they're really inefficient. And so the quality's good though.
Well, Pat, thanks so much for being part of this conversation. Loved hearing your stories. Loved hearing your history. I didn't know that part about how you got into this right out of university. That's amazing. And thanks for saying yes to coming on the podcast. Pat, if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
It would be to hit our website, which is www.q20lab.com.
Nice. Well, thanks again, Pat, and look forward to the next project that we might do together.